So, this is about waking up. This is about coming out of suffering. And how the healing process takes place, how it goes in phases of inward, outward, and I was just talking about distracting myself and what that does. How long can I stay conscious and present with my process? What does that mean? How long can I stay in present to what's going on inside of me? Present to my thoughts, the thoughts that I'm having, and the feelings that I'm having. And of course, there's the whole unconscious that is unconscious. So even if you're present, that remains unconscious until we bump up against something that captures our attention. So negative emotion that becomes conscious to us because it is so negative that, or it has captured our attention. And it can be, it can be super subtle and yet have a huge effect because we've become, depending to which degree we have become, to that degree that we have become aware and sensitive to what's going on, to ourselves, how close we have come to ourselves, how aware we have become of our soul, of our true self, our soul, our spirit, our light, our true self that is immortal, or immortal that is a ray of the sun, that is in unity consciousness, that knows it's one with all life, a spark of life, one with all life. So I was going into that distracting myself, because that happens a lot. I go through the day, and even when I'm aware of a process that's going on that needs my attention, I cannot be, I'm saying I cannot, I find myself not being able to be conscious with, my pain body, let's say, like the representation of the negative emotions in the body, and negative emotions, and because the positive, we're naturally there, we're naturally enjoying them, we're there feeling them because we love them. So this is about the negative. This is about the processes. The whole process is about becoming aware of the shadows, becoming aware of what we're not aware of what we have suppressed into the unknown, into the not unknown, into the unconscious, unaware of, into the subconscious field, and we have to suppress. This is a mechanism that keeps us alive, that keeps us healthy, because we can't. It got there in the first place because something happened that we didn't know how to cope with, that we could not process in the moment, that came from such degree of separation from truth, from God, from all that is, from life, from love, which caused so much fragmentation and pain in us, that in that moment of meeting that, of that happening, we did not have a broad enough framework, understanding, and also nervous system. Quite frankly, just also the nervous system, which is the representation of our consciousness, of the framework of understanding, and the view, the perspective that we have. So if and that the representation of that is the nervous system and how much current they can handle. So if there's too much current flowing through the wires, so to speak, the nervous system, it breaks down, it shuts down, it can't handle the flow of information. Of this negative current, because there's also not the equal of positive current that will hold it in balance, that understands why this is happening. It sees the whole picture. You are aware. Let's just say that this is. I'm just explaining how it is when we have that capacity and when we don't have that capacity. And it's all about not having the capacity as a child, being traumatized, having our current, having our wires fuse. Like the fuses? They get overwhelmed and they shut down. And it's the negative emotion. It's the emotion coming from the belief in separation, from that unconscious program that is based on separation. And it causes contraction, it causes pain, because there's also a story attached to it, extremely painful. Extremely painful. And there is not the positive to hold it in balance. Now that would look like this. If you would have the capacity, and you know what causes trauma for a child, for example, there may be other adults in a room experiencing from a different perspective. Obviously, we're always experiencing from a unique perspective. Adults in a room, for them, they don't even understand why the child now has been overwhelmed and is crying. They may not even be able to understand it. For them, the same event, they have built that nervous system, that understanding. They can see it through a greater framework already, and it doesn't have the same effect on them. And so this is how it works in general. And for huge traumas, that would be also traumatizing for any adult. It is then that we have to. It is our traumas that push us into our soul, into remembering our soul, that push us, because there's nowhere else to go. In order to be able to have the capacity to hold this negative, to hold this wound, to heal the wound, to hold it in a greater perspective and integrate that, which we haven't been able to because we didn't have that positive perspective yet, is the perspective of the soul, is that depth of perspective, is that expansion of perspective. And then we see the purpose of everything. So if we can see the purpose of an event to its very depth, then we can hold it in that neutral place. It doesn't mean that we're like, oh, that. It doesn't mean that then, it's happened anyways, it happened. And it doesn't mean that happening turns into a happy memory. It doesn't mean that the negative emotions, thinking about that, is like, oh, that was so nice, or no. Or it doesn't mean that you diminish, or you say, oh, that wasn't, oh, that was actually a good experience, only because it, on a soul level, it created the expansion that was desired. It created that greater perspective and that greater nervous system. That doesn't mean that. So there's a paradox going on the whole time. It remains, let's say, a horrible experience. It remains that, that was a terrible experience. However, when we can see and we come into the greater picture, over time we build up to that. This builds up over time. Life prepares us bit by bit. Then we come into peace with it, and we accept it, and we take it in, and we can see it in the greater picture, and we become humble in a way. We become humble to it, and we can feel the sadness that it cost us, all of us. We can feel that, and then in the allowing of the most negative emotions that we were not able to feel and be present with, when all this happened, at some point, and that's what life does, it will prepare us to be ready to feel everything, all of our traumas that we have gathered in childhood, excuse me, throughout childhood, and then that we repeat in just other costumes on other stages. But it's exactly the same imprint, the same signature of frequency that is being triggered over and over and over again. And every time we gain a little more capacity to feel the initial trauma. At the same time, it's suffering. It feels like it's also re-traumatizing until we get to the point where the consciousness is ready to turn around and ask, why is this happening? Why does this keep happening to me? How can I come out of this suffering? How can I see a pattern here? How can I come out of this pattern? And where does it come from? So until the point where we are ready to turn within and face ourselves and face our insides. And that's the greatest journey that we'll ever do. And that's the real, for me, that's the real heroism. It's to face our own fears. And that's when the healing begins. So what we can trust, and this is very important to know and to remember, because we are life. We are life. We're not separate from life. And all matter is, in the end, consciousness. That's a whole other, that's science is finding this out, and quantum physics is finding out that at the end of the rope, or at the end of scale, yeah, and in the scale of matter, there is no matter. There's energy. And this energy, this is also what quantum physics has proven, this energy is not separate from the one that is observing it. So this is like the most fascinating discovery scientifically, period. I mean, that's it changes everything. It changes everything. So now back into the practical of coming out of suffering and what to do when we are suffering. And suffering can already be being bored, you know. Suffering can already be, it's a mild form of depression, is this feeling of emptiness and not feeling inspired. This gray, blah, that zone. And that's part of the process too. And so what I want to say is that what we can, this is very, very important to remember, to when we're in the gray, blah, bored, mild depression, where you may think, oh, this is fine, you know, but this is normal, this is how life is. But you may also think, like, there's something wrong with me, you know, I shouldn't be bored. I don't want to be bored, you know. And the more you are consciously, when you've already turned within and started looking within, then the more conscious you are that it's in your hands. It's in your hands to be in the process without suffering, because that's the thing. You can suffer without suffering the suffering, and that's really the key. That's really the key that makes the whole world of a difference. If you're suffering consciously, it's a different kind of suffering. You can handle it, you can hold it, you can be there with it consciously, and that's when the healing occurs. That's the healing process right there. I mean, healing process is huge, you know, preparation to get to that point. But that's the actual, like, nose to the grindstone. That's the actual, when it heals in the body too. That's like that's the last part of the healing, is when you're present with it. Not saying that when you're present with it, what happens is that the iceberg melts. The iceberg of that's in the subconscious, in the unconscious, of your wounds, of your pain that cause you to suffer, is melting down, and it's not going to come back. That's melting down. But I'm not saying that you just do that once and the whole iceberg is gone. No, the melting down of that iceberg is a process. And getting to the point where you are consciously feeling the ice, so to speak, where it's melting, is also part of the process. And so I wanted to talk about distracting, because I find myself distracting myself a lot. And I don't, you know, when that need comes to watch a movie or to go on Facebook and to read a book and distract myself and not be sitting or lying down or standing and being fully present of feeling my body and questioning my mind. And I find that I can't do that 24/7. I mean, while I sleep anyways, but in my waking state I can't do that all the time. That there's only islands of doing that. And so if I beat myself up about how much I'm distracting myself and I'm believing that causes the process to slow down, then this is what is important to remember, because this in itself can cause you to suffer, because your thinking is that you are that I am sabotaging my own process, my healing process, and I'm unnecessarily prolonging it. That's a very, very heavy negative thought, by the way. I don't know what that is. Anyways, it sounds like an animal's up there, but I don't know how that could be that an animal's up there. Anyways, yeah, that's a very heavy thought in itself, to be holding that thought that I am sabotaging my own healing process, and I'm also stalling it in the face of finding myself, distracting myself over and over and over again. So what does it do with me? It will put me into a position where I feel like I'm not good enough. It'll trigger that. It'll trigger, oh, I'm sabotaging myself. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. You know, it's like, ooh, that whole rat's tail is triggered, which is good. But it's only good when I can be conscious to it, what this is about. But when I'm not conscious, that belief causes suffering. When the truth is, and this is what I want to remind myself of, and others who feel, you know, who want to watch this. The truth is that life is perfect. How could it not be? Life is consciousness itself. Falling asleep to itself, waking back up to itself. Contracting, expanding. And we are these forms of consciousness. We're a unique form of consciousness in that experience. Having a unique experience of waking up to our unique selves, ever, ever, ever more expanded, and falling back asleep. Now, we are on the cycle of awakening, obviously. So about the belief of I'm not good enough because I'm distracting myself a lot and I'm stalling the process, when in reality I really want to heal. I really want to get through it. I really want to get it over with already and start the party, you know. Of course. And of course it also goes always in phases. We enjoy, we party, we kind of rest on our laurels, and then the next thing that's in line and ready to be healed and ready to be seen, ready to be felt, comes along. That's what it does, because love, everything that vibrates at love, which is God, which is the 0 point, the no resistance zone, every time that comes, it'll bring up everything that vibrates lower. But we never get more. That's also a truth. We never get more than we can handle, because there's an intrinsic intelligence to everything. So in my unconsciousness, when I distract myself, watch movies or read books and whatever I do, when I do something where I am specifically not wanting to be present with my thoughts and my body, I want a vacation. I want to break. If I do that for, if I go unconscious for long enough, what happens is it's like a rubber band pulling me away from myself. And what happens at a certain moment, when I've gone far enough away from myself, I've gone far enough into the unconscious, because I was being unconscious, and what happens is that we bump into the next thing in line that is waiting for us to be conscious of in our unconscious. So another negative belief, part of the negative belief systems, of many belief systems that all belong to the same belief, branch, all the way back to the root of separation. So what happens usually is that when I go on a spin of distraction, and also on a spin of not just distraction in my mind, but also the kind of foods that then are a match to where I am in my I'm being unconscious, so I'm also attracted to unconscious foods, and I'm feeding. And this is another subject that I wanted to get into. I'm then feeding that vibration. I'm coming from the vibration of being unconscious, and I'm therefore attracted to very low vibrational foods that are a match to that. And they then, at a certain point, when you eat them, and when you put them into your body, they create, they attract those kind of beings, like let's say Candida or parasites. Candida is there because it feeds off of it's the cleanup crew, really. It's kind of like another kind of cleanup crew. It's the unconscious cleanup crew, because it feeds off of these junk foods, let's say, off of the junk that we put in, that the body is overwhelmed with it. It can't process it properly, so it attracts these parasites that feed off of the junk. They feed off of the junk. If the junk is not quickly enough able to go into the process, the natural process of transformation, like in a compost pile, it has to have a balance to be transformed. So if it's out of balance because there's too much of like a fragmented junk food, which is junk food means it's a not natural, not balanced food. It's a highly derivative, highly fragmented food, and so the positive organisms, the ecosystem can't handle it. Then those critters come that'll help the ecosystem handle it because they eat it. But the problem is that those critters, their poo is not good for our system. And now what also happens is that they want more. That's the only thing they can eat. They can only eat junk. And so now they're there. We attracted them. And now they're like, I'm hungry, I need more, And so we're attracted to more junk food. So it's kind of like a vicious cycle. We get into this vicious cycle, and then we're vibrating at this level, and it also then makes it more difficult to be present with ourselves, because we're kind of being ridden by these cravings. So we're in a vicious cycle. Now I can beat myself up about it. I can beat myself up about being addicted, eating junk food. I can also beat myself up about not being conscious enough. Or because that's as I said, that's a really negative. That adds a lot of heaviness and just feeds back into this vicious cycle. It feeds the vicious cycle. It's another match to that frequency. It makes it worse, in other words. Makes it worse and keeps the play going. Oh, I wish I were different. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm sabotaging myself. Oh, I'm so weak. Okay. That's one perspective of seeing it. But is that true? Is that the truth? Is that perspective is that a clean window, or is there a filter in front of it, that filter telling you that you are all these things, and you are sabotaging yourself, and you are not able to break out of this vicious cycle because you are so weak? And yeah, so it's all this, as you can see, it's all negative, 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 yeah? Actually keeping you in it. It's that those thoughts are keeping you in it. Okay. So, but the question is, are those thoughts based in reality? Okay, when I say I shouldn't say reality here, I should say truth. Because reality is always how our perception is, how we perceive reality, and then reality is also how it is being the physical part of it, the events, all the material, the subjects, the objects, how they're being pushed around on the playing field. That's reality, and then reality also is how we perceive it. So there's these two parts to experience. Is reality how it works, the structure of how it's built, the principles and the structure, and then it's the perception of it, and the principle and the structure of that, and that coming together, and that creates our reality, or our experience of reality. Yeah. So is that true? Is that true? And now I come back to what is so important to remember, is that the truth is that it's not possible. Okay, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that that is part of the process of awakening, is falling into these, is being unconscious and going very, very deep into the unconscious, distracting ourselves, being addicted, and being in this vicious cycle, because as I said, with this, we go farther and farther and farther away. And at some point, we get so far away, it's like a rubber band. Because we really can never lose contact truly to ourselves and to all that is. That's the illusion. That's the illusion. So we go so far into the illusion that it becomes unbearable. Becomes unbearable. And that gives us the momentum and the strength that at some point something gives. And to the degree that we have separated ourselves from ourselves, that we have walked into the unconscious, into the dark, into the shadow, into the pain, that is the degree that we will come back into the other direction, to ourselves, wake up to our consciousness. And it is the greatest opportunity, because what happens when we distract ourselves for a long time, at some point, we may fall into a deep depression. We may really go rock bottom. And where to go from rock bottom? That's the thing. At rock bottom is the golden opportunity, is the greatest opportunity for us to wake up to exactly a deep, whatever's waiting there that's next in line to be seen, whatever is, what is it that pulled us down there to begin with? What is it that pulled us down? What is it? It's the same thing that we're running away from, that we're distracting ourselves from. Why is it so hard to be present with what is in the now? Because the now and what I am feeling is not good. It doesn't feel good. There's so many negative thoughts there. There's so much that I'm not even aware of, and it doesn't feel good. So when we go into the unconscious, at some point we meet that which has been suppressed in the unconscious, that is exactly that which we are unconscious of, but that is next in line and that is needed for us to become conscious of, and that is the pain that we've been running away from. So we actually go into the pain when we distract ourselves from it. And to know that we cannot go wrong. You see, we cannot go wrong. So even when I'm presumably on the slow track, on the stalling, on the self-sabotaging track, I'm actually on my way home. And I'm actually on the fast track. Just let that, just let that sink in for a moment. Wow. Because I know this is true. First of all, because it all makes complete sense. And second of all, when I say something that is true, everything falls into this. Everything relaxes and falls back into the middle. Silence. It's like I can feel the column. I can feel the energy flow of the column, the tornado in the middle. Because now I've come into the truth. I've come close to myself. It's like the truth is the soul. It's the soul's wisdom, knowledge, knowing that I've come to, that is speaking. And energetically, there's a shift that happens. I can feel my energy body. I can feel how it now nourishes my nervous system. Relaxing. Really getting this is so key. Now I'm allowing my body to catch up, that it doesn't just remain mental. This is embodying the truth. Coming back to the truth, not just mentally, but also physically. Yeah, and I can feel my heart, very subtle. Because all those thoughts about, I'm just not good enough. I'm a loser. I'm wasting my life away. Keep distracting myself, keep falling into these addictive. Oh, I know now what it is. It's not an animal. It's the ice falling off of the roof. Yeah, that is the sound. Beautiful, actually. As we are speaking, the ice is melting off the roof. So, there's a fear of wasting my life away as I'm distracting myself from the healing process. And in reality, and that fear is huge. It's such a burden. It's such a burden. Yeah, my body's catching up. Because there have always been parts of me that have been buying into this the whole time. As the mind is still, the body can catch up to the truth of this. That it is impossible to go wrong. And that even the feeling we don't love ourselves, I don't love myself, is an illusion that I'm buying into, that's very painful. And as I remember the truth, that even when I believe in self-sabotage and I'm suffering and I'm believing that I'm, all these negative thoughts about myself and that I am just stuck in self-sabotage, even then, now I can, as I come back to truth, can see not a single second is wasted, is unnecessary, is in vain. Is prolonging my healing, the coming back home. Every second is necessary. Every second of distraction is necessary. So all that is, the way it is necessary for my awakening. And it is that way for every life form. Every life form. Wow. So I'm going to sit now and just in silence to get this. And I'm going to stop the video.